Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes, and today I'm joined by the original, Mr. Kevin Graham.
The original?
The original.
The original, aye.
Kevin, episode 300, mate.
I know, that's unbelievable.
300 episodes of A Celtic State of Mind.
I remember the first one very well.
So did I. You were wearing a Mickhead t-shirt and shorts.
Shorts, yes. My attire's probably improved a bit, maybe. I'm not 100% sure, but 300 episodes. I think if anybody would have told us that we would get to here in 300 episodes, I wouldn't have believed them, But it was always a thing about A Celtic State of Mind when you sold it to me. Basically, it wasn't going to be the same as everything else is out there, and we've sort of proved that as we've went on. And to sit here, be doing video broadcasts, podcasts, live events, going to be publishing books.
Yeah.
Magic. It's great. Some bumps along the way, but that's
all
nothing's going to run smoothly, is it?
Nothing that we couldn't overcome, Kevin. But you're right, with regards to A Celtic State of Mind, we set it up with a vision, and the vision was to do things a wee bit differently. And the staple podcast back in the day, and until recently really, Kevin, was based on interviews, letting people tell their stories about this thing called Celtic, and it fared as well. But what happened during the lockdown is we turned that into a daily routine, and obviously, you know, when you're speaking to somebody every single day for months and months, you get to the point where you think, right, let's change it a bit. It's all right when you're doing it once a week. We started doing it daily. Let's change it up a bit. And we looked at other inspirations from outside of the world of football as to how other industries are working in relation to engagement and creating content. And we realised that live and interactive is the way to go. And it certainly has been the way to go over the last few months. And we're doing the bulletins every single day, every weekday that is. Today, this is our third. We've got another one coming later on. Yesterday we done 3. We try and create as much content as possible. I was looking at iTunes earlier on today, and I'm not going to labour this, but as far as iTunes are concerned, we have put out more episodes than any other Celtic outlet. I'm pretty chuffed with that.
Aye, it's. I'm just thinking back there to that day when we recorded the first podcast, and there's maybe a bit of symmetry here. The day we recorded the first podcast, it wasn't the day it went out, but the day we recorded it, Scotland played England that afternoon, and Lee Griffiths scored the 2 free kicks, because I was going to the Scotland-England game.
You were? Wow. I remember sitting watching that on the couch.
So that was June the 12th. It would have been 2017.
Oh, that's incredible. It was, aye, you're spot on. You're spot on. I remember sitting watching the game, and my wife's not a big football fan, but she was asking me about the guy Griffiths, etc. And all I said was, there's nobody else in Scottish football could have done what Lee Griffiths did that day. That's the way I explained it. Now, is there anybody else in that Celtic squad could have done what Lee Griffiths done yesterday?
I got it tight yesterday once he scored that goal, and I'm quite glad. I'm quite happy to actually to be proven wrong. If Neil Lennon would have just came out and told us 4 weeks ago that he'd promised Lee Griffiths to wait on him, then all the talking that we had and all the things when I says that I didn't expect to see my Celtic jersey again would have been null and void, because we would have just been waiting on the return of the Griff. When you have a look at that goal yesterday, I mean, the goal came for a St Johnstone free kick. Mm-hmm. Kamala hooks the ball clear. Griffiths challenges for the ball on the halfway line, and it breaks, and we win the second ball. It ends up breaking to Callum McGregor, who takes it up the park. At the edge of the box, McGregor plays the ball at the edge of the box to Lee Griffiths, who plays it to Christopher Ayer. Ayer then does a fantastic wee hop, skip and jump, whatever it was. Straight
out of Milan. It had the class of a Milanese catwalk.
Oh, he had quick feet. He lays it to the other rampaging centre-half who's on the overlap at this point. I mean, you've got to remember, we're drawing this game. Why is your two centre-halves 25 yards from the opposition's goal when it's nothing each?
Remember Lisbon.
I know,
two fullbacks.
I know. This is what's so special, and this is why I was really quite disappointed in people questioning the attitude and the mentality of the team.
Yeah.
Have a look at it. Two of our three centre-halves are 25 yards from the opposition goal when it's nothing each in the 90th minute.
Mm-hmm.
Elhamed crosses a ball, and as soon as it's in the middle and you see Lee Griffiths standing there himself, you're going, this is in. And what a header. What a fantastic header. And I'm so chuffed for him. I'm so chuffed for us. I'm so chuffed for you, who actually showed the utmost support of him all during this summer. What was it Stevie Mullen says, that we actually taking stray dogs and stuff like that as well? How many chances do we give people? But what a header that was. Got us out of jail, but that's what he can do.
That's what he can do.
That's what he can do. The podcast yesterday captured the feeling that we had in that last minute perfectly.
Oh, I did, and I've just played you the unedited version as well, Kevin.
Which I'll maybe go on a blooper reel at one point. Look, the wee man came off the bench yesterday. All the subs came off the bench and contributed yesterday to a performance that was really flat. And what you wanted, that's what you want. You want your substitutes to come on and kick things into gear. And we got that yesterday. We've shown that if you use your 5 subs well, you can swing things your way. And credit to the coaching staff yesterday. And I says last Monday, I remember sitting here last Monday as well, saying it was too simple a solution, taking Scott Brown out the team to make our performances better. And it proved yesterday that there's no simple solution.
No, you're spot on. There was a lot of people, Kevin, who were of the train of thought that we played better without Scott Brown, and the only thing I can think of in that respect is the spell where he was out the side, and there was talk about him going to Australia, and Colin Watt spoke about this earlier on today, and we played a few games and we did look as though the whole tempo increased through the midfield. However, when you see what Scott Brown did, not just in a playing sense, but in the fact that he rallied the troops. He's such a leader, and we've got leaders in that team, because I do think Duffy's a natural leader. Callum McGregor's grown into that role as well. I think Ayer's a leader. So we do have leaders in the team, but no one quite like Scott Brown. And when you're looking at the appearances now, the total appearances, he's edging ever closer to 600. And then you're moving into the realms of the Danny McGrain in terms of the amount of appearances. And what I think is quite frightening is McGrain signed for Celtic in 67, didn't he play his first game until 1970, of course. But he played his final game in 1987. Now, Scott Brown looks set to play more games for Celtic than Danny McGrain. Now, maybe when the thing's happening, and maybe this was the case at the time of the Lisbon Lions and the Quality Street gangs, you maybe take things for granted to a certain degree. But we're going to be looking back on the life and times of Scott Brown, and he's going to be one of these iconic captains, if he isn't already regarded as such, that we look back on throughout the entire history of the club, and he's going to be right up there, Kevin. Right up there.
Definitely. And one of the things that when people were saying, take Scott Brown out of the team, take Scott Brown out of the team, I was like, well, it gives us more. It's the mentality of the team seems to be like in Scott Brown. Mm-hmm. And you're quite right to mention Callum McGregor yesterday led in his own way.
Yes.
He fetched the ball, he harried, he tried to keep things moving. Christopher Ayer led in his own way, by being 25 yards from goal with a minute to go. Mm-hmm. Shane Duffy, who was superb for the second goal as well, winning that ball and driving forward, led in his own way. But that team's used to being led by Scott Brown. Mm-hmm. That team is used to Scott Brown dragging them by the ears at times. Rugby Park last year as well, and that was 2 years ago now actually, Rugby Park. That Scott Brown's is indoctored and is in the mindset of that team that it's going to be difficult when he's not there. And I think Neil Lennon's virtually admitted that. And it's something that David Turnbull's going to need to step up to the plate.
Yeah.
Callum McGregor's going to need to step up to the plate. They've got to learn how to play when Scott Brown's not there. I noticed that there were some people yesterday were going, there's no over-exaggeration about the ability of David Turnbull today when they got took off. David Turnbull's got to learn to play for Celtic. He won't do that after 90 minutes. He won't do that after 45 minutes. The boy has shown potential, but he's now got to get the mentality to play for Celtic. And that could take a season, could take 2 seasons, it could take 2 games.
The best example of that is the aforementioned Scott Brown.
Definitely.
He comes in from Hibs. He's the most expensive Scottish footballer that's moved from a Scottish club to a Scottish club at that stage. And it takes him time to step up, and it's not just a step up in playing standard, Kevin. It is that mentality, isn't it? It's a state of mind.
It is.
It's a state of mind, and how many players that have come to Celtic from other Scottish clubs have failed to make that step up? So many of them. So many talented players who've not been able to make that step up. So Scott Brown's a shining example for Turnbull. When you're looking at the changes that were made yesterday, Kevin, I suggested we would make 3. I got 1 right because Turnbull came in. Were you impressed with the players that came in?
The performance was really flat. When you see words like dreadful and atrocious, when you're sitting at nothing each, it's quite difficult to compute. Because if you're dreadful, you're like Man United or Liverpool yesterday, shot them 6 and 7 goals. If you're dreadful, you're actually dreadful.
Yep.
You're getting a tanking, you're getting a tonking, you're getting beat 4-0 at Tynecastle to end the invincible run. We were absolutely dreadful that day at Tynecastle, and we deservedly got beat. Yesterday we weren't dreadful. In this sort of period, we haven't been dreadful once. We've just been extremely flat. And there's a difference between, for me, for being dreadful and flat. Things are not just quite clicking, but we have the mentality and the attitude to get wins. And that's what's been getting us through. Since we haven't dropped a point, since we dropped points at Kilmarnock, we've had late goals against Dundee United, Riga, yesterday as well. That shows the sign of the mentality of the side and the attitude of the side is fine. And I find it bemusing when I see Celtic fans using the word, it's a dreadful performance, a terrible performance. Aye, it's no silky football. Aye, it's no the football, the sexy football that we want to see. But you cannot question the mentality of that squad. You can't say that squad is not playing for the coaching staff. There is things that can be better. Of course there is things that can be better. But we can only get better. And if we keep on winning games while we're trying to find that, and maybe when we get to midnight the night, everything's settled down, then we can look to go forward and the performances will now come. Well,
I remember going back to, would it be the last time we were at McDermott Park, Kevin? The 1-0 game where Ryan Christie scored the free kick.
That's right,
And he ran over almost directly to you and I where we were standing on that cold, wet day. And the unbridled joy in his face and in his body language that day could be unquestionable, right? Now, yesterday, if there had been a wee camera on at the time of the first and second goal yesterday, the scenes were in this studio with Colin Lawrence and myself. But someone has picked up on the lack of celebration from Ryan Christie when we scored the first goal. Do you read anything into that?
I don't know. I noticed it as well, and I didn't notice it until I watched a replay of the goal on last night on Sports Scene, and it just seems a bit weird that he didn't celebrate a last-minute winner. I suppose we could be reading too much into this. It could just be that he was like, who knows? It could just been like he was concentrating. There's 3 minutes of the game to go. There's no fans there. Maybe getting overexcited is quite difficult without that. It's easy enough to see why Lee Griffiths got excited. He scored the goal. He is going to get excited, but it was a very bizarre reaction from Christie. I never actually thought about that day, as you says, when he jumped on the advertising board in front of us, and that was a tough game at McDermott Park as well that day.
It was,
and I know we've had some big victories at McDermott Park, but in my mind we always get it tough there. We don't usually get it easy.
I can only remember one game, the free-flowing, the game that we tore them apart.
6-0.
Yeah, but generally it's tight, it's tough.
What's Christie expecting? Is he expecting to move today? Is he disappointed that somebody behind the scenes says, no, you're not moving this window? Is he disappointed that maybe his agents promised him a move and it's not came about? It could be that he's at McDermott Park yesterday. And again, you can't... Let's have a wee look at this. You can't question his attitude, because he came on and he tried to make things happen.
And I made that point on Thursday night with Stevie Mullen as well, during the second half, taking my notes during the second half of the game, Kevin. Everything we did positively came through Christie. And there were 7 or 8 examples, actually, against Sarajevo. And it's Ryan Christie. He either shoots or he's taking the corner or he's setting something up. And everything he did was positive. Sometimes people look at him as being a prima donna. I've heard that said. Yes, a lot of his passes go astray, but if you focus on them, it's taking the shine off all the good work that he's doing. And again, when he, as you say, his participation was positive in the game yesterday. I don't think there's ever been a game where he looks as though he's not interested.
No,
that just shows that he didn't celebrate the goal. It doesn't mean he says he's not interested. I mean, it could well have been a professionalism where the game's not finished yet. We still need to obviously see it through. But it was a wee bit concerning because of the timing. Now, we're looking at the transfer window. We've been keeping an eye on it. I think when I looked at the ticker on the Sky Sports, it was 16 hours. It's now sitting at 6 hours. Obviously, the Scottish window closes at midnight. And we're going to come back from my home probably at 11 o'clock, where we'll have a final update, and we are expecting Diego Lazolt or Lax Salt to come in, left back AC Milan. The only other Celtic link I've seen this morning is Danny Fox is on his way to India, another left back. Anything else, any other business of note that you've heard of?
I haven't heard anything, but I think we've got to take Stephen McGowan's tweet about, and
good guy, Stephen.
Most recent tweet that it's only going to be Lax Salt that's coming in, nobody else, and nobody's leaving. Mm-hmm. So I think when somebody is well connected as Stephen tweets something like that, we can almost say that's it done. I'm very, very impressed that we're getting Diego Lax Salt. I remember him when I watched quite a bit of Serie A, or I did at this point, and when he played for Bologna, he was up and down that wing. Just imagine a Frimpong on the other side. Wow. And but he's Uruguayan and can defend and will kick his granny if needed, as all Uruguayans seem to be. It seems to be ingrained into them, this will to win.
Racing club, anyone?
I think as well, he was very noticeable because of his hair. He had like cornrows and dreadlocks when he played for Bologna, which is very unusual for a white South American to have cornrows in his hair. But he's 27. He's experienced. He's a Uruguayan international. And I'm very, very surprised that nobody else in Serie A have actually come in for him. Really surprised that it's took to the final day for us to be able to get a player of his calibre.
What I love about the deal is that, it wasn't one of these rumours that you heard 3 or 4 weeks ago that the club leaked or any of this kind of stuff, Kevin. It happens, we get the deal done, job done. I mean, all the talk was Chris Ayer to AC Milan, and we'll flip that right on its head. No, in actual fact, we'll just take a left back in on loan instead. But we'll go through that. We'll go through the players.
But before we go, Stephen Ray, commenter, mentioned Lax Salt a few weeks ago.
You did?
He did.
You did, aye. And I think that was down to his knowledge of the South American game, as much as anything. And he did suggest that this is a player we should look at.
Because when he mentioned the name, I went, we've got no chance of getting him.
Well, there you go.
When he mentioned it, because I knew the player. which is really unusual nowadays when you're getting a player from Europe.
If Mr McGowan is correct, and he's the final addition to the Celtic squad, is there any other areas that you're concerned about that we've not strengthened so far, Kevin?
I always want a wee magician, I always want a wee Lubo, I always want a wee Nakamura. Every window I ask for a Lubo or a Nakamura.
Who is he these days?
I don't know. I mean, remember the days when we used to get linked with Hakan Yakin? Every single window. And
Ray Stephen, every window. Nice. I'm not even sure the guy existed, but every single window we used to get linked to Ray Stephen, the older school. I remember him, had a moustache, he used to play for Dundee, but we never ever signed him to this day. With regards to the squad and who we have brought in, I've been asking your predecessors, Colin Watt and also Lawrence Conley, in relation to the transfer business so far, Kevin, and obviously we have brought in 5 players in El Yunusi, Barkas, Ayeti, Turnbull and Duffy. Colin spoke about El Yunusi and Barkas, Lawrence about Ayeti and Turnbull. I want you now to speak to me about Duffy and Lazolt. And, when you're looking at the previous transfer windows, Kevin, and the calibre of the player that we've been bringing in this window, how impressed have you been? How much of that is down to Neil Lennon?
I'm really impressed that the signings that we've brought in are first team ready, apart from maybe Turnbull. But even then, I do think Turnbull's first team ready, but he's got quite a number of bodies in front of him before he'll become a regular in the first team. But he will. He's definitely got that ability. Shane Duffy, 28-year-old, experienced international player. We've probably only got him because of his Celtic background. Again, it was one of those names that was kicked up weeks ago, and I was always a bit worried that we were just getting used as a tool to maybe for him to get a permanent move to one of the other middle and English clubs, your West Hams or somebody like that. But I have been impressed with him as a man since he's came in. I think he's looking a bit rusty now. I think there is a saying, he's a big unit. But unfortunately for anybody that's tried to carry a unit up a flight of stairs, especially if there's a turn in the flight of stairs, it can be quite tricky. And he seems to have that sort of, he seems to get turned quite easily with the balls in behind. And where's playing a high line, he's going to need all his experience not to get caught out. Because he doesn't seem to have that much pace. He's got a great reading of the game. He's a danger in the opposition box and he's fantastic in our box. He is a dominant centre-half that we've been crying out for. The problem with dominant centre-halves is sometimes in the modern game, up against pacey wingers, pacey forwards, they are going to get caught out. Interestingly, I thought, I mentioned use Hoovid earlier on before we came on air. Don't remember the hoo-ha it was about him and Daniel Mastorovic as well. And I was always a worry of mine that he was going to be a damp squib, Duffy. And I think we're not seeing signs of him being a damp squib, but we are now more appreciative of what he can bring to the team and what he doesn't bring to the team. So it's about learning, tempering our expectations with that. But as you says, he is a leader. I like him as a person. When you heard him getting interviewed after he signed for Celtic, he was very down to earth. He was very. He'll be good for the team, good for the squad, good for Christopher Ayer alongside him, good for Christopher Jullien as well when Jullien comes back. I mean, you look. He doesn't look too comfortable on the ball. He likes to give the ball not away, but he'll pass. He'll do the horseshoe pass that you see so often in the modern game now. You look at big Christopher Jullien. I reckon we missed Jullien yesterday for his balls across the top. I was
just going to say
that's
Duffy. You know what Duffy doesn't have. Jullien's got the distribution, and Ayer's got the dribbling, if you like, or the ball playing part and aspect of that. How important do you think Duffy has been and will be to his fellow centre-halves in terms of that leadership quality and making sure that they're organised, especially in front of a new goalkeeper who obviously in the first few weeks of the season we were still getting used to.
As long he seems to be quite vocal, which is something we're maybe missing in the back line. I'm not. It's quite as you've said a number of times on this show. It's quite unusual now to be able to hear the shouts, whereas before you couldn't hear the shouts before, and you can hear Duffy be quite vocal. You can hear the goalkeeper being quite vocal as well. So he is going to be. He's played at a higher level than any of the back three. What I would call our first choice back three, Jullien, Duffy and Ajer. He's played at a higher level than any of them. He's got more experience than any of them. So you would think that he would be able to get them through games, especially if games when we're under siege. I've got no worries about our back line now developing a siege mentality if there's any game when we're hanging on. I mean, you've seen him thrown himself in front of things. He doesn't think twice about doing things like that. Something that you don't see in Jullien and Ajer. Ajer sometimes can be a bit rash, goes down too easily. With Duffy, he seems to have a reading of the game better. You saw it yesterday against St Johnstone when he intercepted that Stevie May pass for the second goal. He's going to need to use his reading of his game because he knows himself that he hasn't got the pace. So it's how he reads the game, how he's going to talk they two through the games as well, is going to be really, really important going forward. And just he knows what the club's about. Big Jullien's bought into what the club's about as well. I think we can say that. So's Ajer. And if they're fully focused on the job ahead, I've got no worries about them as a back three. No worries whatsoever. And I think Duffy does improve us despite his quite obvious limitations. When you think about the furore around him signing, we spoke about it for a few weeks before he arrived. He was the player we wanted, Kevin. We've now likened him to carrying a fridge up a high flight stairwell. and what I would suggest is he played no football. All of a sudden he's come to Celtic Park. He's playing 2 games a week, and then when you get an opportunity of a rest with the internationals, he's away playing 2 games the last time he's away playing. So will there come a point, do you think, with the improved performances, albeit on pre-injury, the return of Jullien, El Hamid, who is a very adaptable player and you can rely on him, will there be occasions where we might be able to give Duffy a wee rest as well? Now, I know he's only 28, but he didn't play a lot of football leading up to coming to Celtic, and he's just been thrown right in there, isn't he? And if we're being fair to the guy, and we've got to be fair to the guy, then that's probably where it is. It's a recovery time. He's hardly kicked a ball for 8 months. Then all of a sudden he's thrust into his dream move. The adrenaline's flowing. Within 14, 15 minutes of his debut, he scored. It's a magical time for him. Then the next thing you know, he's sore. He's having to play 3 games a week. He's going, I'm not really used to this. Oh, what do you mean that these centre forwards can boot me? That's a free kick. What do you mean I can't boot them back? So he's still learning Scottish game. And once that adrenaline wore off, I think you've seen him maybe struggle with a game every 3 days. Yeah. And we do have options if there is times for him to come to, if he needs that rest, for him to be rested. But I reckon he's the type of character that won't want to get rested. We've seen it with Edouard being rested. It's doable. Let's go back with John Hartson. John Hartson says he hated being rested because he only got fit playing games. And that could be the same with Duffy. And I'm not... This putting a unit up a set of stairs is great when it gets up the top of the stairs, though. It's brilliant when it's sitting in your nice kitchen, your fridge, or whatever it is. So I didn't mean that in a bad way. I'm just meaning it like with somebody that size, there is going to be limitations in certain situations. I love the big fella, and folk have already said that they want to give Lee Griffiths my home address for him after I said he would never play for Celtic. The best part about that broadcast is that I'm facing the screen, you're not.
So I knew that Lee Griffiths was actually part of the broadcast. He'd come in to see what we're saying about him. And you were giving him it tight, and I wasn't.
If Lee's watching again today, if he wants my home address, just message the show and I'll speak to him. and I'll apologise, no problem. And for what I've said about Shane Duffy there, if Shane Duffy finds out what I've says, he's quite a big
I wouldn't tell him my home address.
I'm not going to tell him my home address.
No, definitely not. Stephen Forbes, you're commenting on YouTube. Welcome to the show. And for anybody who's tuning in on YouTube, that's a platform that we really started using, Kevin, about 2 months ago. We're really trying to build up the subscriber base just so we can get out to as many people as possible, because it's all free on YouTube. So get us watched, and we'll go out as often as we can. Today, we will have 4 broadcasts. This is number 3. This is the treble. And Stephen Forbes is saying, if an experienced left-sided player comes in and we retain our key players, an 8 or 9 out of 10 in terms of the transfer window. If no left-sided reinforcements, 6 to 7 out of 10, as it's an area we've needed to strengthen for some time, for some weeks. When we're looking at the actual strength of the transfer windows, what I was doing with Colin earlier on was looking at some of the earlier ones, Kevin, and some of the other transfer windows in the past, part of the 9 in a row era. Season 2014-15, we brought in Craig Gordon, Berget, remember him, Tonev, Denaya, Wakaso, Skepovic, Guedetti. Quite a few of those guys were in on loan. And then obviously in the January transfer window, we brought in Duffy, Mackay, Stephen and Armstrong. Who did we lose? We lost Forster, Samaras and Kyle. That was an interesting transfer window. How would you rate that compared to the current season?
Obviously, the current season's far better. Far better.
That would have been Ronnie Dyler's first season.
That would have been Ronnie Dyler, but then you have a look at that, you've got Denai and Guedetti. Guedetti could have been a player for us.
He could have been.
He's one that sometimes I look at it, got away.
Frustrates me, I think so. Yeah.
I don't know even where he is now.
We sold him to Celta Vigo, but he's since moved from there. Am I right?
Alaves, maybe, another club in Spain. But he could have been a cult hero at Celtic.
I know.
He had the ability, definitely.
He
that goal he
did.
scored against, was it Inter Milan? He's one that I was disappointed that did leave.
I know, he could have been, as you say, he could have been a real fan's favourite. Now, when we're looking at the following season, which would have been Ronnie Dyler's second season in charge, we brought in Boyata, Janko, Chiefche, Allen, Blackett, Christie, Simonovic, Cole, Sviatchenko, Roberts and Kazim Richards. So a busy arrival desk that day. And we lost Pookie as well as Matthews and Virgil van Dijk. So plenty of bodies coming in. But when you're looking at that, how many of them really made the grade for Celtic? Boyata certainly did. Ryan Christie, Jozo, Roberts and Sviatchenko. Sviatchenko did.
He did. Very bizarrely moved on for.
But it was strange timing, wasn't it?
He really bizarrely moved on. I mean, he was no worse than any other centre-half.
Lacked a bit of pace.
He did.
Aye.
But he was no worse than any other centre-halves that we had at the time. He was a Danish international, So that window, at the time, that window probably became to be a good window because you've got Christie, Boyata in it. And even the previous window, when you look at the January signing, Armstrong as well.
Yeah.
And come on, that was the window we got Paddy Roberts.
Are we allowed to mention Paddy Roberts on transfer deadline day?
May as well.
I know. And then obviously the first season under Brendan Rodgers, we brought in Ayer, which was a legacy of Ronnie Dyler, of course, Dembele, Toure, Sinclair, De Vries and Kouassi. Not a bad transfer window. Not as good as this one, I wouldn't have thought.
Toure done the job to get us in the Champions League. That's what he was brung in for. Scott Sinclair, always going to be fondly remembered for his time at Celtic. Who else did we bring? Dembele. Oh, come on. One of the best centre forwards that we've had since Henrik Larsson. They three make up for your Kouassi and who else?
De
Vries. Aye, they three make up for that.
One of the departures, because we did see the departure of Johansson, who was a player I liked a lot. Mulgrew, Skepovic and Tony Stokes. Where is Tony Stokes?
Maybe he's away to India with Danny Fox.
Well, I think Robbie Fowler was interested in taking him to the Indian Super League. That was the last I heard.
That's a bizarre move, eh? I take it Robbie Fowler must know Danny Fox, eh?
Oh,
they're both Scousers. Oh, that sounds like everybody in Liverpool kens each other.
I know, like it's a wee village.
Like it's a wee village, eh? That's like the Americans that say...
You're from Scotland, do you know this guy?
Aye.
Yeah. So here we go. Boom, boom, coil. Does L'Assault go straight in on the left side for the Rangers game? See, that's a good point. That's a very good point. How often have we seen that where a player gets thrown right in against Rangers in their various guises, and it's a difficult game for them. I remember back in the day, Stuart Slater, and he performed brilliantly against Rangers, didn't he? But there's been other occasions where players have been thrown in and the game has just passed them by.
Yes, it'll probably all depend on his fitness, and I don't know if he's away with Uruguay over the next fortnight, so it will depend on his fitness. It'll depend on his attitude. It will depend on how he integrates with the squad. Neil and the coaching staff have been a bit reluctant to throw guys straight in, unlike Martin O'Neill, who that was one of Martin O'Neill's management tricks, to sign players and throw them right in and just tell them, oh, well, you've no trained with your teammates, that's fine, just go and play left back.
Yeah.
And so for me, I would say yes, and just tell him there's a guy there on Rangers' right hand side who says that he's the best player in Scotland. Go and Uruguay in him.
That would be an interesting challenge for him, that's for sure. John Hewitt, you're commenting on YouTube, making soup and salads up for the week. Need news on what's going down on the hoops. Hail, hail. Well, John, I've asked this question before, is it the John Hewitt? Remember he signed for Celtic, £250,000 under Billy McNeil? Well, what is going down, it would appear that Celtic's transfer business will conclude with the signing of Diego L'Assault. And the next question, actually, is an interesting one from IH Decorating. Is the news that no major outgoings to happen every bit as big as others coming in? I would say yeah. I think if nothing else happens other than us finalising the deal with AC Milan, for L'Assault that is, not for Aya, then I am delighted with that. That means we've never buckled to any kind of financial pressure or otherwise with regards to Edouard, Christie, Ayer and Cham. We go into the season after this window much stronger than we did prior to the transfer window, if you ask me. Definitely.
I think if you go back through our vast video archive now, you'll see the video that we made the day that we won 9 in a row.
That's right.
And I says on that day I would be happy to stand still, and which would mean not to lose any of our top players and bring in the 2 guys back on loan. So that was Foster and Moy.
El Younussi, yeah.
So am I disappointed Foster's didn't come back? Of course, but I think Barkas has got different attributes, and he's looking.
He looks like a French sculpture or something. I like the fact that he's got a bit of an iconic look about him. Like he's going to be a bit, he's definitely going to get involved in a bit of the old shenanigans on the park and that, and probably against Rangers. Definitely,
and going back to a goalkeeping point of view, I'm very, very confident with him with balls coming into the box. He did lose one yesterday, right enough, but
didn't seem that concerned, did he?
Didn't seem to bother him. And any time you see a ball whipped into the 6-yard box, you go, he's coming to catch that. He very, unlike Big Fraser, who liked to punch things, he seems very comfortable catching the ball, and his movement when he catches that ball.
He's instantly looking for an out ball.
He's instantly looking for an out ball. Yep. He's got that movement. So I did say at that point I would be happy to stand still. We have improved, which I didn't expect, just because of the whole financial situation that we're currently finding ourselves in. I mean, at the moment we're probably running that, depending on what the loan fee is for L'Assault, we're probably going to be running at a £12 million deficit on transfers. So we've spent we've plus 12 million on transfer fees in a pandemic transfer window.
I know, and it's 12 million of our own money, which is the difference.
Yeah,
so we're not getting into debt by buying these players in.
again, even this transfer window's no shut, but then the more pessimistic in us will probably look to January and go, could we lose somebody in January then to make up this balance? It is possible, but you look at this window as an utter success when you look at the circumstances that we're in, the calibre of player that we've brought in, the age of the player that we've brought in, and just the whole backdrop of this pandemic, complete and utterly strange world that we're now finding ourselves watching football in.
The big thing for me, Kevin, is you watched that game yesterday and 2 players that came on and contributed weren't quoted a month ago. In another month, there's going to be another couple of players in the same scenario who are not at the moment part of the squad, and that's Ayeti and Mikey Johnson. You're then looking to get James Forrest to come back in. Other players may come to the fore that at the moment aren't shown, like Sorrow. Who knows what's going to happen with him this season. You've got a player in Klamala who he might be the 3rd or the 4th choice striker, but every time he's asked to come on and do something, he tries his best to do it. I mean, the attitude that he showed when he was taken out for the second goal was just brilliant for a fan. And you know, when you're looking at players like that, and when you're looking at the wider squad, that's I think where Celtic will always have the upper hand, because we've got such a deep squad now, Kevin, and players who can actually come on and make a big difference.
Definitely this season, and I've said this quite often, because the season's shorter and there's no winter break, we are going to need the squad, and we are going to need people to contribute. And if we've got the best and the biggest squad, then we should be fine going forward. I mean, you mentioned Mikey Johnson and that there. Well, let's not kid ourselves on. The interest in these players that we've been speaking about all summer will still be there. But the reason that they haven't moved this window is probably due to COVID. There'll be some reasoning why these clubs either haven't pushed the button or the players don't fancy the move. So that interest will still be there, whether it's this window or next window, when this whole situation, the financial situation that clubs are going to find themselves in, settles down. This is a completely strange transfer window, and we've came out it really well. And if we go to midnight tonight and we've still got Eddie and we've still got Ayer and we've still got Cham, then you go, wow, I didn't expect that to happen, because I really didn't expect that to happen. Well,
fair play, to Celtic, because Celtic fans, we've been looking at the fact that, we've invested, Kevin, we've got a virtual season ticket, but we're looking for what extra you're going to get, because it now looks as though we're never going to get back into the stadium this season. I think we were all very optimistic about getting in there October, and when we had the middle of October in the diaries, it's not going to happen. We won't see the inside a football stadium this season by the looks of it. But one thing the club have certainly done, it would seem, and there's a few hours to go, is that they have ensured that the squad that we want to be there is there, and that's massive for Celtic fans in this season of all seasons. Now, Stephen T comments on YouTube, Paul John, biz all done, you can leave the equipment in the studio. Well, we might have done that, but then Kevin turned up with a packet of matchmakers to celebrate 300 episodes, so we decided to run with another episode. And Francie Dub LU says, happy 300th, lads. Well, thanks very much. And it's 300 episodes, and the archive is on YouTube, the archive is on iTunes, Spreaker, various other platforms as well. Scott Graham, you're passing on your congratulations, and we do appreciate it. Also IH Decorating, best platform out there for Celtic fans. William Kennedy, ACSOM is the best platform available to the Celtic fans. Keep up the great work. We intend to do that. We've got big plans for other shows, Kevin, other shows that are Celtic related, and quite a few that are not Celtic related as well, for other podcasters to get involved.
Brilliant getting that feedback. It's brilliant getting the feedback, and thanks very much to everybody who's been with us for the start, or who's just came on board since we've started doing the more video interactive stuff. Sometimes with a podcast it can be a very delayed reaction, but with this one it's great getting the involvement of the viewers, the listeners, and aye, it's great. Thanks very much, boys.
Absolutely, Kevin. We realised how effective live and interactive was, but you weren't prepared to set up an OnlyFans page, so you're going to have to get ACSOM live bulletins instead. Now, Stevie Ray, who certainly knows a lot about Lizolt, has said the addition of this player will be a tremendous piece of business. Fast, aggressive, technically good. If he gets back to his performances of Genoa and the 2018 World Cup, it will be KT who? Now, Stevie knows a lot about this player. He's kept an eye on him. And it was actually Stevie Ray who brought it up, suggested him. And here we are.
I know, and I have to agree with every word that he says there. I remember the player himself playing with Genoa. I think I says he played for Bologna, but it was Genoa in his Genoa days. And it was no surprise that AC Milan signed him at that point. And he is probably right. If Diego Laxalt gets back to what he was in 2017-18 for Genoa, I hope that we have a buy clause in this. I hope that we manage to negotiate a decent deal for this to buy him, because it'll be the whole Paddy Roberts thing again.
Well, you're looking at the deal with Lizolt, and again we're talking about the calibre of players that we've been bringing in, Kevin. John McAdam mentions via YouTube that according to reports there is an option to buy him at the end of the season for £9 million, which would match the fee for Edouard. It gives you an indication of the level and the quality of the player that we're coming in, if it is indeed a £9 million clause that's in that loan deal. I mean, that shows you exactly the kind of quality that we're bringing in here.
Definitely, and it's quite common for Italian clubs to operate that sort of deal. AC Milan signed I can't remember the young guy for Brescia, will come to me probably when this broadcast is finished, but they've paid £10 million up front to pay £35 million next summer to buy him. So they've basically paid a £10 million loan fee. So I don't know what our loan fee is going to be for this, but it wouldn't surprise me with the quality of player that we're actually getting if the buy fee is round about £8-9 million. Wouldn't it surprise me one little bit?
Now, Gary Doonan, who is a regular contributor to the broadcast, and it's always great to hear his views via Facebook. Thank God I slipped onto that PLZ. 5 minutes I lasted. Lauren's got it right earlier. Rangers good, Celtic bad, and Tam McManus supping a bit of the soup. Well, thankfully we're busy, so we can't tune in to PLZ.
I know. Tam seems to be too busy trying to get his pals and football moves.
Oh, Stephen Fletcher, that was this window as well. I've never even put him on my list here.
Aye, Fletcher.
Now, let's have a look at some of the names that have been discussed on the ACSOM broadcasts, because I wrote a list earlier on, and the ones that I could remember were 18. There's Cavani again outside Celtic Park, but he's not signing for us. 18 players we were linked to, but there's been more, of course. One of whom that I've totally forgot about, but I'll stick him on your list, was Stephen Fletcher. Lewis Ferguson, Ben Davis, James McLean, Noah Lang, Caleb Ekubo, and Alan Campbell. So you've got 7 players there. When you're looking at that list, are there any on the players that you think will remain on Celtic's radar?
I'll stick my poor reputation already on the line and say Lewis Ferguson will be a Celtic player either in January or next summer.
What about Alan Campbell, Motherwell?
I would probably put more money on Lewis Ferguson.
Okay. And again, it was spoken about at the time where his name was mentioned in the same paragraph as Celtic. Obviously, we all know who his dad and his brother, his uncle are. Nobody has a problem with that.
No, not at all.
Absolutely no problem with that whatsoever, because you're looking at a talented Scottish prospect there. And I think we've always got to remember, Kevin, the John McGinn scenario and what happened with McGinn and where he is now and what it would cost to bring a player like McGinn to the club. I'm not comparing Lewis Ferguson to him, but that scenario is that is a possibility with any young talent coming out of Scotland. McGinn came from St Mirren, so if you're looking at a player like Campbell at Motherwell, the same thing can happen. He could move to a Hibs or an Aberdeen who have been interested in him, get a move down south, and then they're completely out of your price range.
I think Celtic are playing it the long game with Lewis Ferguson, and I do think that the move will happen. At the moment, that may mean that we need to lose somebody in the middle of the park. So if you go back to what I says, that we've got a deficit to make up, and we could see somebody moving in January. We could see a midfield option or two midfield options opening in January, and I think Lewis Ferguson might be coming to fill in one of those spaces in the squad. And the Sky Sports yellow ticker is just telling us that Diego Latsalt is in London for his Celtic medical.
Oh, that's brilliant, because Colin Watt told us that 3 or 4 hours ago. Of the list of players that you've been given, and I'll run through them again: Lewis Ferguson, Ben Davis, James McLean, Noah Lang, Caleb Ekuban, I think I called him Ekuban, Alan Campbell, Stephen Fletcher. When you're looking at that, players obviously been tied up elsewhere. Is there any that you regret we didn't go for or pursue?
Ben Davis seemed to be an interesting one, but I think the fee was a bit on the high side. It usually is when you're buying from that English market. You never mentioned Alfie Doherty.
I think he was on Lawrence's list.
Was he on Lawrence's list? Yeah. Probably the Ben Davis one. I've already said about Lewis Ferguson. I haven't really seen much Alan Campbell, but for the money that we could sign him on a pre-contract in January, that's right, I think, because I haven't seen enough of him, but possibly the Ben Davis one would have been interesting. Because he's coming for a decent level of football. But again, a lot of these names, you don't know how much truth is in any of them. I'm really happy that we maybe didn't get Ben Davis, and we're now looking at a Uruguay international coming to play for Celtic.
Oh, it's brilliant. There's a few more comments coming in.
The first Uruguayan to play for Celtic.
Aye.
And the first Uruguayan since Fabian Llantero to play in Scottish football.
Right. Who did he play for?
He played for Gretna in season 2007-2008, and he scored the free kick for Park when it was Chris Cullen's finest moment in a Celtic jersey.
Oh, don't mention him.
When we scored two, Scott McDonald and Chris Cullen scored 2 goals in the last minute.
So what was the name of the Uruguayan that played for Gretna?
Fabian Llantero.
Right, and did he play in the same team as James Allen of Las Vegas fame and Danny Lennon?
No.
Who wasn't in Las Vegas?
He was only there 2007-2008.
Okay. Ken Walsh. How you doing, Ken? Good to hear from you. Mr. Screamer Celica, the voice of reason. Looking good, Kev. And we've also got Boom Boom Coil. Great to hear from you. Any chance of talking transfers, lads? Well, we finally got there. We just we had a wee bit to catch up on the St Johnstone game before we started speaking about them. Barca boy, the lad could simply be relieved. Talking about Christie when he scored the goal. But I doubt it. And William Kennedy reckons that he did a wee fist bump. The thing is with that, and we did mention this earlier, Lawrence and I, during that game there was loads of parts that we didn't get a chance to see slow motion replays or whatever, so yeah, it's possible. Red Scotland, what a signing Lazolt will be. Is he not a serious player? By all accounts, he is a serious player and a fantastic addition to the Celtic squad. Rafael Kavanagh, my only problem with ACSOM is that I spend too much time looking at it. Keep up the great work, lads. That's brilliant to hear. Seriously, I don't take any of these comments for granted whatsoever. It's great to hear from as many Celtic supporters as possible. And I think that also when we're looking at what could have been a big story, and listen, we're not through the transfer window yet, Kevin, so I'm not counting my chickens quite yet, but there are 4 players who have been linked. I don't know how strong the links are, to be honest with you, because I've not actually seen any confirmed links to Aston Villa and Arsenal for Edouard. I've seen them in the Scottish press. I've not seen any, for example, in the English media in relation to that. I've never heard anybody in Arsenal or Aston Villa talking about it. The link between Christie and Burnley, it was already it was confirmed as being incorrect, and it was not confirmed from Celtic or from the club. And I think Burnley's transfer business has been done, as far as I know. Then you're looking at Ayer. Yeah, he was linked to AC Milan. They've strengthened today in defence, so it's unlikely that they're going to pursue that. And the other one was Ncham. A host of clubs linked to Ncham, Again, nothing confirmed. So we could be coming out of this window with all 4 of them, and that would be fantastic. If we do lose one of them, Kevin, and you had to choose which one, who would it be and why?
Oh, it'd be Christie or Encham, and I would more likely to go for Encham, just because he either purrs or he pukes. There doesn't seem to be any middle ground with him whatsoever, and sometimes he frustrates the living daylights out of us. Yesterday he didn't really do anything, but then there's other games where you see him playing passes that nobody else in Scottish football can actually play. Because of his pedigree, because he's been at Man City, because he's impressed in Serie A, because he's impressed with the French under-21s, I think we could command a decent fee for him. And also we have plenty of bodies in that area of the pitch. Let's talk about Tom Roberts. A fantastic wee turn yesterday. It's the first time we've seen that this season, when he done that wee pirouette in the middle of the park. But that's the only reason, because of the number of bodies that we've got in there, and because he has been quite inconsistent for us. And it's a shame, because I really, really do rate him. But it's a tough question. You didn't want any of your players to leave, but it's going to happen at some point.
No, you're right. And as I say, if we get through this next few hours and we don't lose any of the big 4, as I'm calling them, in terms of transfer targets, then fair play to the club. Great bit of business.
No, remember, after we got put out with Fenerbahce, we had the whole place was in a meltdown, and Cham and Ayer's agents asked for their fee to see how much Celtic would look for. Maybe Celtic did give them a fee, and it's too rich in these strange times. It could well be. It could be that Arsenal have made discreet inquiries about Edouard, but the 40 million, 35 million, or whatever fee it is Celtic think that he's worth, is too rich at this precise moment in time.
When you're looking at the transfer window, it's a merry-go-round, it really is. And we're going to be here again in January, Kevin. There's going to be clubs desperate for players for any number of reasons, because they're pushing for titles. They try to stave off relegation. Some of them will sell players and have money to spend. That interest is still going to be there. If there's any interest just now, it'll still be there come January. Definitely,
and it depends how desperate, as you says, it depends how desperate the teams are. Some of the teams in January, you see them and they sign 8, 9, 10 players to try and stave off relegation, to try and get them into a mid-table position, to try and give them that push to European places or something like that. It's like a machine gun approach. They just think, well, if you throw 20 odd darts at a dartboard, you're going to eventually hit a treble 20. That's what the January window seems to be.
If you chucked a dart at Hugh Keevins' dartboard, who would you hit? That's the question. Now, Kevin McCluskey, Jack Aitchison away to Barnsley on a 3-year deal. Shame he never kicked on after his debut goal. We spoke about Aitchison earlier when Colin was on the show, and we did expect quite a few of the players of his ilk to either go out on loan. This looks as though obviously it's a permanent deal and he's away to Barnsley. That's a shame, because he was at the time when he scored, and he probably still is, Celtic's youngest ever goal scorer.
Shame for the lad. He never really got a chance with us, but then again, let's be realistic here. Look at the players in front of him. He's got a serious amount of talent in front of him, and good luck to the lad at Barnsley. I always want to see Scottish strikers doing well, because I do take an interest in the Scottish national team, and we need as many strikers as we can get doing well at a decent level of football.
Colin Watt wants to know where your yellow tie is, Kev.
Well,
we've got these wee yellow things on the mic. Is that not good enough, no?
Well, I saw Colin wasn't wearing one, so I took my fashion tips for Colin earlier on.
Now, listen, we've got another few things to cover in relation to the transfers. If, for example, we've let 26 players go. If Jack Aitchison's away, that will be the 27th, albeit 12 of them have been on loan.
26 players, that's a phenomenal
It's
amount,
actually, it's interesting when you look at that. A lot of them are young players whose contracts come to an end, Kevin. 12 of them gone out on loan. Of the 27, as it will now be, 8 would be classed as first team players, because I wouldn't class Aitchison, although he's played for the first team, as being part of the squad. If you had to keep one from the players that we've let go this transfer window, Kevin, who would it have been?
There's 2 on my list. There would have been 3 if we weren't signing this Uruguayan left back. I would have said Johnny Hayes would have been one if we were going to get left with Greg Taylor as only option on the left hand side. I'm still a bit worried about the backup goalie situation, so it would be between Craig Gordon and, from a purely romantic Celtic point of view, Swed, because we need somebody to unlock defences. We need somebody that can produce that wee bit of magic. And always hoped that these guys like him and Arzani, I wanted them to be those players. So it's a bit of a disappointment that he's not made it with us.
Yeah.
But he also doesn't seem to be making it is it Mechlin he's on loan to?
He went to Mechlin, yeah.
He seems to be annoying their coach already as well.
Yeah.
So maybe that's just me being far too romantic. But looking at the squad just now, I wish we would have kept on to hold at Craig Gordon.
So we've basically, when we look at the kind of transfer business that Neil Lennon does, and I've said this before, he does tend to buy players that he wants to put right into that team. And we looked earlier on at the transfer business he'd done back in 2011-12. Different beast entirely back then, but it was players like Kelvin Wilson, Adam Matthews, Victor Wanyama, Fraser Foster, albeit Bangura and El Kaduri came in, but Kaduri was a short-term thing. He buys players, Kevin, to put right into the first team. And already, obviously with the arrival of Lazolt, he's the 6th player that he's brought in this window, and all 6 of those players could start. They could start, their first team players. So what we're starting to see here is Lennon finally crafting his own Celtic side.
Apart from Turnbull, there's no projects, and even then Turnbull probably isn't a project.
He's certainly not the long-term one, is he? Yeah, he's right in there.
No.
Yep.
So there's definitely a change. Is it a short-term change because of what's at stake this season?
Mm-hmm.
Is this a boom or bust gamble to make sure that we do get the 10 at the end of this season? But when you mentioned Adam Matthews. Adam Matthews was a great servant for us. Could play on the left or the right hand side. He was a
decent squad player.
Did we let him go too early maybe?
We got a sniff, I think, at £2 million at a time where we had brought him in for nothing. We looked upon it as being progress, where you bring in a player and you make a £2 million quick profit on him. It's
interesting when Neil Lennon got the Celtic job in the shower after completing the treble. The first thing Peter Lawwell says about him, he knows a player. And when you've started reading what he done in that window there's no many failures in that, and the players that you say are first team ready.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be again. And remember, at this point last year we were in utter chaos because we didn't have a director of football or whatever, the chief scout, chief whatever they are, and we had Nicky Hammond and we gave him a 6-week contract,
mm-hmm.
which was basically saying, right, use your contacts for 6 weeks and get us some players.
Yep. So
there was no scouting done last summer either. So I'm quite glad that there seems to be a bit of scouting done. With Duffy's obviously the opportunity presented itself. Barkas, he must have been on the scouting team's radar for maybe since EEK. We played EEK a couple of seasons ago. Ayeti, again, we've scouted him quite extensively as well. And Turnbull, has been quite obvious that Neil Lennon's wanted David Turnbull since the moment that he got the job permanently.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's better that we've got a manager who knows a player rather than a development coach.
There's certainly an argument there, isn't there? When you look at the results, and hopefully the result will be.
But we do need a balance, Paul. We really do need a balance. We need to have projects and we need to have first team players. We've got to have a mix and a balance, and we just can't chuck all our apples in the one basket.
Well, it used to be that your projects were nurtured youth players that came through the ranks. That was your projects, and you would go out and sign players to complement that, Kevin. But I like the way it's going. I'm looking forward to seeing Lizotte paraded in a Celtic jersey. And this is the third broadcast of 4. We'll be back at 11 o'clock tonight. And thanks everybody for getting involved on the social media channels. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe on YouTube, because we'll keep the broadcast coming. And all that's left for me to say, Kevin, is thank you once again for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.
Thank you, everybody. Cheers.